Greetings, one and all. Hopefully, you're doing well. We're going to be discussing the fifth episode of The Mandalorian. This was a very interesting one. Just like how last one was also a very unique adventure that they had with all their monsters, and the previous one where they had the adventures on Coruscant. This one also is a very jarring in many ways because it really does surprise the audience where they're going with it. We have, lo and behold, space pirates this time. Before we begin, I would like to welcome back Rolling Chairs to the discussion. How you doing, Rolling Chairs?
Hello. Doing good. How are you?
Fair and well. Well, right now, we're not going to be spending a ton of time on this one just because I think that a lot of the episodes kind of interest was probably taken up with action sequences, and that will make things a little bit easier to kind of discuss. But for starters, what were your thoughts, Rolling Chairs, on the direction they went with this episode, just as an overview?
There's some things I really liked. I guess I kind of like the direction they're taking it. They're at least trying to do something. I like progressing the story in some way, which is interesting. There's some things I also didn't like, which we'll talk about towards the end of the discussion, because it's at the end of the episode. But it was a very mixed episode, but the action was much better in this episode than some of the past ones, because they just weren't fighting any random trolls or something that was popping up. There's actually some kind of meaning behind it.
That is something I will give this episode, just from the start, is that it definitely took much more of an overarching narrative route. The last one was very much reactionary to things that were happening. This one felt like it actually contributed to an overarching plot. But it also was a very weak approach as well. But yeah, we'll dive into that even more as we go forward with this. So now we're going to be going on a scene-by-scene review of what happened in this episode. All right, widen the screen there. That will be much better. So for a start, we find ourselves back on Navarro. Navarro, I feel like we kind of miss like a proper planet introduction. Maybe I'm just forgetting it from the past, but I keep feeling like whenever we see Navarro, for the amount of times we visited this place, we're not given a proper, thorough introduction. I don't feel like we have any real strong attachments to this place, other than that this is like some sort of stop on their journey from point A to point B. Well, here on Navarro, they're having the High Magistrate making very important decisions as he magistrates all the events of as he manages all of these different events here on this planet. He's telling them that they need to move the marketplace to another part of the region, which, by the way, that just sounds a little bizarre that you're micromanaging everything like that. It doesn't seem like you're necessarily living over a free society in that case. So I noted that.
Was he even voted for, or did he? Because the way they make it seem is he had some connection with the pirates, and some of the downfall of what was happening there in the earlier seasons. But now it seems like he took part of it, but now he's the one like rebuilding it, like almost like he created the problems, and then when everyone was down, he took power. And did they even vote for him, or was he chosen? Like, is this a democracy? Like, what's going on here?
I think the robot probably put him in power.
Something.
Oh my! But yeah, that's a strange thing. It's almost as jarring. Which, by the way, for the film Return of the Jedi, I didn't like how they just decided to start throwing around the title of general to all these characters. It made sense for the Clone Wars because they didn't have an army, and so they just start bestowing the title of general to Jedi because they're the ones that are trusted and they already have an army. They just don't have a leader. But when you just grab characters and start giving them the title general, that's just kind of a general promotion for everybody. It doesn't really matter at that point. For this story, though, I am left a bit perplexed. It's like, yeah, this guy would help destroy the place, and now they're trusting him in everything? I wish we would have seen a little bit more kind of a build-up, maybe some resistance to his rule. That would have been nice. But we don't get any of that.
Yeah,
so we
he
do
wasn't
see
the one
him.
who like firsthand. He wasn't like the one who firsthand caused the downfall, but from the way they make it seem, is like he had connections with the people who were causing problems here. But,
Yep.
yeah.
And he's also, it's just the fact that he's being trusted in everything. That's the part that gets me, is that they're not questioning it. They're just kind of showing that everything's going by smoothly because he's there.
Yeah.
Well, then they get a very rude interruption, and they realize people are freaking out. Like, what are they freaking out about? Well, lo and behold, it's pirates. This guy's face, every time it appears, I can't take it seriously. This is a Davy Jones wannabe. He is, in every aspect, a 1700s pirate, and I don't get it. So he comes on and he starts giving a kind of an ultimatum and a threat, but as he's speaking the whole time, his mouth does not match what is on screen.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I think they changed some of the dialogue like last minute or something. But it looks really weird. I thought my TV was glitching out for a little bit when I was watching that part.
Yeah, well, it is a practical effect, and when you have practical effects like that, you're going to have problems. But I feel like they didn't even know what his voice was going to be saying, so they didn't know how to match it up properly. They just kind of started puppeting and didn't really have any way of, making it actually work out. They just said, hey, go out there and just start moving the mouth up and down. It'll be good enough. Then we'll add the voice in later, and we'll figure out what they say at a later date. Very much feels like that for a lot of this story, is that they're adding no weight to it by actually like planning out these things. It feels very much like they're editing this episode by episode, or maybe even scene by scene, and they don't actually have any consistency.
Yeah, that's why I think they might have made changes last minute, because they didn't know where exactly they're going with this episode. But I will admit, I do think Gordon Shard looks cool. And I've gotten Davy Jones vibes from him for sure. Nowhere near as cool as Davy Jones, but I don't know. I like the look of the whole thing.
It looks to me like someone just put a bush on his face and said it's good enough. Well, an algae-covered bush.
Yeah, I want to know where he's from. Does he live on like a swamp planet or something? I'm very interested, to be honest.
Well, actually, it goes to a very interesting point that I've been kind of noticing across social media. People are starting to notice that this is Disney's approach to try and create the pirate genre as a replacement for Jabba the Hutt. It's like they both have the similar sort of desire to control the criminal enterprise, but Gordian Shard mentions that he is part of a pirate nation. That's ridiculous. That is very much ridiculous, because Jabba the Hutt was the same sort of thing, but he did it from the shadows. And this guy is just blatantly saying, no, I'm the king of a pirate nation. It was not something I found very engaging.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they really try to lean into the pirate stuff. Even in the sequel trilogy, they do some of that. Like Hondo getting in trouble, or Han getting in trouble with some of the like pirate type people, and but we also do see pirates in like the Clone Wars. I think that's a Dave Filoni type thing that he's trying to really expand upon in this world. Uh, like one Hondo, I'm pretty sure his name Hondo Naka or something. He's a pirate
Hmm.
in the Clone Wars, and he's pretty cool. He interacts with Anakin and all them often. But so I'm not against the whole pirate thing, but literally his ship in this episode, like he turns it like it's a wheel to a like a real boat. It's a really weird ship, to be honest. Did you notice that?
Yeah, well, that's why I really dislike this character. Like, of the characters we've seen in this series so far, this is really close to the worst that I've seen. His look is abysmal. His behavior is abysmal. Everything screams that he is a pirate of Earth from the 1700s transported into the future. This isn't Treasure Planet, folks. This here is supposed to be Star Wars. We already have an idea of what the pirates of this world look like. We know what sort of crime lords there are. We know that they're not a nation. It's basically ruled by by tyrants. We don't get any of that here. We just get, oh, quick, we need to put in pirates because pirates sell money. Well, it doesn't sound to me like they even remotely planned this out. It's like they looked in their kit of pirate ideas and just grabbed every one of them and put them together. But we'll dive really in depth into the pirates once we get to their ship.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I'm not against the whole pirate vibe of things. I do like pirates, especially the Pirates of the Caribbean movie. But they did make it seem a little too similar to pirates, kind of like from stuff that's been like inspired from in like other media, not just like some kind of some like it didn't. I get kind of like what you're saying. It just felt too much like something you'd see here on Earth or in our entertainment here on Earth, not some. Didn't feel quite Star Wars to the fullest.
Right. And of course, the moving of the mouth was just so very jarring.
Yeah.
So very jarring. So he gets his threat, and he looks out the window and he sees that the ship is rolling in. So what does he do? He reaches out to an R2 unit and says, an astromech, and says, "Quick, I need to give you something." And they start bombarding the place, and he literally hands a data card to the to this droid. Getting Princess Leia vibes, anybody?
Yeah.
That just added even more to this whole concept that they did not plan out this episode even slightly.
Hope us, like, Mandalorian. Quick. Your only hope.
Yes, precisely. But he's reaching out to another character that we'll really dive into that I find a bit kind of goofy. I'm not saying the character is a bad choice. I'm just saying how they're using him is kind of goofy. But so he says that, I have this message for you. Of course, he can't just like beam it up or like call somebody. We've already seen that that's how technology around this world of Disney Star Wars works. So why is it not happening that way? Not entirely sure. But now the pirates are starting their bombardment. And they're destroying the city. So what is the civilians' first inclination? Let's run into an open field where they can easily gun us down. Like, honestly, the pirates can see you. They're not going to... I mean, if they really want to destroy you, it doesn't take much. I mean, you're all grouped together. You're not even spreading out. You're just running in this mass exodus, and your crowd feels really small.
Yeah, is there only 50 people in this town? Where did everyone else go?
I love also whenever Disney films panic, they basically tell people just run around in circles. We'll make it work somehow. Because that's literally what these people are doing. They're going to and fro. They're making strange beelines all over the place. They don't actually look like they're in panic. They look like they're acting like they're in panic. And that's what makes it so bizarre. You don't have a sense that they're scared. You don't have a sense that they're like they have any sort of worry or concern. And I'm not saying that George Lucas did it any better. But I am saying if you want to have a look of panic and fear and you want to see it in a world that is fanciful, a good one to look at is Lord of the Rings. They actually do a pretty good job at having mass exodus and having panic and destruction. They did that very well. Star Wars hasn't. Everyone acts like they're immortal. They're just wandering around the streets, no look of panic, no real fear. They don't even really care that who's actually bombarding them. For all they know, it could be the magistrate. These people have no loyalties, and so when they have no loyalties, they don't really have, and as we've seen in past episodes, and when we see that being attacked from the sky is causing them to just kind of run around out into the open, these people don't have any sort of sense of that. Quick, go into a bunker. Quick, let's go into the mines. No, let's go out into the open, and we're going to grab our stuff as we flee. If you really fear for your life, you're throwing all that stuff away, which means that they don't actually fear for their life. They know they're being used as pawns in a chess match between people just kind of playing power games. I also love that the R2 unit's right back there with stuff on his head, wandering around aimlessly.
Yeah. It would have been cool to see them defend their planet a little bit, even if it was just like 2 minutes, like right at the beginning or something. Just seeing something, like the panic from some people trying to defend themselves from this invasion. It would have been cool to see it just a little bit more from this whole thing, from the people of this city or planet or whatever.
Actually, that's a good point. Where are the defenses of this planet? I mean, if you're going to be your own planet, you really need to have some level of defense, even if it's just the threat of one. The fact that the magistrate, the high magistrate, thinks that somehow he's going to be able to protect this planet, and he's not putting any effort into actually militarizing it. He's more concerned about what we saw at the start, which is more concerned about where the market is placed than realizing that pirates are likely going to come back. When he threatened a pirate and shot him and his men, honestly, that was a really dumb idea. If you have no defenses and you're going to threaten them, you better have something to follow up that threat with. And he doesn't have anything. And I can't figure out what in tarnations he was thinking, other than maybe he wanted to scare the population to try and go find a way to join the Republic, but that doesn't make sense for his character, so it's unfortunate that they took that approach. But then we get an interesting shot, and I actually like this shot right here. And this is a Republic outpost, a military base. And I love it because it feels logical. This feels like it belongs in the world of Star Wars. Yes, it also it kind of rings with the idea of U.S. military bases from the mid-1900s, but at the same time, like I said, it makes sense. This is a patrol base. They are stationed out of here. It's not anything that's too fancy. It's the Republic's kind of quick effort to try and build some sort of ability to reach out power throughout the galaxy. It's run down. It's probably used for some other purpose once upon a time. And it is weathered. It looks like it belongs in the world of Star Wars. Look at this world as opposed to Navarro. Navarro looks like it is more of a city, more of something you would see in another sci-fi story. It does have some similarities to Star Wars, but when I think about Star Wars, it's not those scenes that kind of stand out to me. It's this one right here, which actually looks like it belongs to an funded military. These people have defenses. Now, I did not like the music in the background of this area. That was a bit bizarre. And I did like the fact that they did show where these pilots would have been spending their time. Again, it was probably not the... They definitely could have improved upon it, but compared to other scenes in this series, I actually enjoyed it.
See the pool game they're playing? It's literally pool just with a different table
Yep,
in the background.
is indeed unique. This character is quite the important figure of the galaxy. He's your he is the he very much reminds me of Mr. Miyagi from the Karate Kid. He just has those vibes to me. But the reason why I find this character a bit silly is that he is routinely called upon to basically represent the Republic's military. He shows up constantly and doesn't actually do anything. He shows up and basically passes the torch to somebody else whenever he's there. It's like, okay, fine. You have this guy on hand. He's probably on contract, but please use some other people as well. Or make his position more important. Don't... Because when you try and add importance to this character, and there is none, it doesn't make sense to us.
Yeah, and like in a moment of danger, his choice is to send the magistrate's choice is to send a message to this one person instead of like mass sending out this message. Like he thinks his city's collapsing. Like he could die the next day. You think he'd be like, send this message across all planets of the universe. Not, yeah, let's just hopefully we can find this one pilot and maybe he can help us. Like you think he'd have a lot more options, but not just this one individual.
What's more, it's a pilot. It's not like a representative.
Yeah.
You call him if you think that maybe you need a squadron, not when you're trying to get the Republic to notice you. Especially when we learn earlier that they've kind of had the opportunity to join the Republic to this point, they've refused. So if you're desperate, you don't contact this guy. You contact his superior and his superior, and then it'll work out a little bit better in your favor. But there they are having drinks at the bar, and he gets the message. Why was the message handed to an R2 unit if they were just going to have it beamed to them over here? Why did the magistrate put his card into the astromech? Why didn't he just put it into his desk where there's probably a slot for such things? Bit bizarre to me.
He should have tried to contact like as high up of authority as he could within the Republic. I just wanted to know, like, who's the head of the Republic at this point in time? Like, who's the leader? Who was voted for? Who's guiding everyone? I think that's something that Disney's afraid to kind of confront. So instead of like them actually trying to communicate whoever the leader of the New Republic is or as high authority you can reach, they're just like, yeah, we've already introduced this pilot. Let's just have him handle this.
Right.
But like, I am curious. Like, who's running this place? Are we gonna find out soon?
Well, we find out that Mr. Miyagi is friends with this alien troll character, and he decides he's going to take this information and take it to the New Republic, because that's what they should do. That's the important thing, to get defenses for that.
Pretty sure that character's in Rebels, that alien guy. It's one of the main characters. He's his name's Zeb. He knew like Ezra, and he's met Ahsoka before. Yeah, so we've seen him before in Rebels. He was a part of the Rebels fighting. So it makes sense that he's with this character. But I'm really curious, like, how did he get here? And stuff, from where we left off in Rebels. But yeah, he is in Rebels. It's a known character.
So then we travel to Coruscant. And while we are there, we realize that this pilot has gone to speak to a superior, and he's speaking to some folks at a data center, more or less. Now I know there's more to it, but it is strange to me that he goes to this place and not a military base. He goes to an area where there's dispatchers, but for all we see in this area, he's just managing documents. It's nothing. He doesn't speak to me as being a government representative. He doesn't look to me to be a military, someone who's in the military. This guy is a paper pusher. So why is he being the one that's consulted for a military endeavor?
I agree.
Maybe, I mean, more likely he's going to be contacting an actual officer, or he's going to be talking to a senator, more likely. Not this guy. But we had to go to this guy because we had a card that is a data card like the ones that the guy's surrounded by. So obviously he's the one who needs to get it. He doesn't even listen to the message before he's like, no, we can't do it. We're underfunded. And so guess who shows up? Oh my. This character. Just when we thought that we were rid of this character, she's back. And we find out that she's been climbing the ladder. Now she's in a much more prestigious position in a dispatch office. And Miyagi wannabe notices that she was once part of the Empire. And he is mentioning that we have a problem. Moff Gideon never made it to trial, which, by the way, would be pretty obvious that that did not happen. So I don't know why it's such a secret. But he says that there must be a connection between Moff Gideon and the pirates. And he's somehow convinced that the planet Navarro is important. Which actually is a little bit of good information. Is building up this planet Navarro. Is making it more important. But again, I feel like they're adding importance to a place that really we should have been given a better introduction to back in the past. The Mandalorian started there. That's where they were hiding out in their secret underground base. So we already know that it has some level of importance, but yet it feels like Tatooine in many ways. The way that they go around trying to add more importance to Tatooine but they don't have any sort of like background to really give us a strong connection to it. Navarro is supposed to be an important planet, but we don't have that level of attachment. I barely even knew the name of the planet when this season started because it was that irrelevant. So he's told that we're not going to be sending any sort of help. We're stretched too thin. And then this character, she reminds him that they need to probably feel the pain before they will actually come to the New Republic and ask for help. Which, honestly, is kind of how a bureaucrat thinks. So, in that sense, that was good. I actually did like that nod that the New Republic's feeling proud and arrogant. And in this sense, they're becoming just like the Empire. So, pilot Miyagi then leaves, and by the way, his name is not Miyagi. I'm just doing it because he reminds me of him. He leaves and decides he's going to find someone else to help out. Well, we return to the planet Navarro, and we see everybody just out in the desert, out in the open, where the pirates can easily catch them. But they are somehow protected out there in the desert. And they go
Nobody's injured.
Yeah,
Nobody's injured. Their clothes are clean. Everyone's just straight faced, like they're just going for a walk. Like it's just so weird. This part's really.
He goes to a mountain, to a rock, and looks out to see that. Where's the shot here? No, he gives people a speech. That's what he does. There we go. He looks out and he sees the pirate ship just kind of hovering in the air. If he can see them, they can see him. But somehow we're made to believe that, well, the pirates don't have any sort of interest in capturing these people. They just wanted to have the town. Okay, you know what? We'll give them that. That might make sense. Greetings, Bastion. Well, then we return to our New Republic pilot, and he's flying around, and he comes to the secret hideaway where the Mandalorians are stationed. And we're thinking, okay, how is he finding this? He's out here in the middle of this expanse of this galaxy, and he somehow finds exactly where the Mandalorians are. That's pretty easy. Well, as he lands, which, by the way, was, I think, good cinematography, as he lands, he doesn't see any sign of the Mandalorians, other than that there's a ship outside. He gets out and approaches the cave where all the Mandalorians are in. He probably would be able to tell from all the blaster fire and scarring of the landscape that there are people there. But obviously, that's not the case, because there is, yet again, no sign of a struggle, no sign of death or blood or armor or blaster fire, nothing. This cave is always pristine, and the sand around it is completely untouched. So he goes up.
Footsteps missing.
He goes up and says, I'm looking for Mandalorians. And by the way, some Mandalorians are seen up above the cave, which if he's flying in, he would have seen that. Out come the Mandalorians saying, how did you find us? We pride ourselves on our secrecy. And obviously, there's a problem because, well, if you're so secretive, you wouldn't leave a starship out on your front lawn. Literally.
Yeah.
I mean, at least Din Djarin was, civil enough to be able to hide his, but they just looked at the one that Bo-Katan brought and like, oh, no, we can leave that there. By the way, there's no mention of those monsters that they brought back with them from the last episode. No sign of them, not a sound, nothing. It kind of goes back, actually, to something that I remember hearing about in a college class, which mentioned that that one of the most revolutionary TV shows that was ever made was, oh golly, what was the name of that? It was, I gotta find this, because otherwise this reference isn't going to work. Alright. Let us see if this pulls it up. And I can't even describe it because I never actually watched it, so I can't even ask folks to kind of help me figure out what it is. But basically, the show was designed so that every episode would basically forget everything that had happened prior. And that is not it. So let's try this over here. Golly, why is this so hard? The show was Routinely praised everyone. Oh, here we go. Here we go. This is it. Of course, it's... Of course, they've taken down the website that would actually tell me the name of this. Sorry for the detour here, folks. Rolling chairs for the spacecraft, by the way, for the X-wing and this pilot. Does he appear in any other Star Wars content from like Rebels or whatnot? Do you know?
The Miyagi guy?
Yeah, that fella.
I don't think so. I think he's really introduced into this show and his connection with Mandalorian. But I must say about this scene, like with the Mandalorians coming out with a cape, Paz Vizsla looks so cool in every shot this episode. I don't know what it is, but that huge dude in that armor, it just like he looks intimidating every shot this episode. Like it's pretty cool.
All right, I figured out the name of the show that I could not remember. Seinfeld. Seinfeld was renowned for being remarkably forgettable, apparently because I forgot the name. The reason why it was so revolutionary was because every single episode started as if nothing in the previous episodes had ever happened. You could watch them out of order. You could just watch one or two and never watch another one again. You basically had seen Seinfeld. It was considered revolutionary, and a lot of people were trying to imitate it moving forward. I feel like there is some of that sort of behavior in the writers when they're addressing this series. It's like past events matter, but yet they don't matter. And they really pick and choose which ones they want to actually kind of follow through with. A good example is the Mandalorian helmets. That the rules on that keep changing all the time. It's like nobody is actually keeping a log of what this should be.
Yeah.
There are people in this world where their job is literally to just record everything that they see on set, see in a script, and catalog it in such a way that people can be able to reference it like a Bible, and they just open it up and say, hey, how is this character supposed to behave? And they just come over to it, spit out the information, and they call it good. By the way, the people in this world that are the best for that are usually people that have some sort of mental handicap, and they have perfect recall. Those people are indispensable for the film industry. But I've noticed that they're not really doing that anymore. They're not having these people that have this ability to remember absolutely everything, to be able to catalog everything in such a way. They're not using that anymore. They're just writing off of the spur of the moment. Like, how should this character respond? Well, how does this character's past actually impact how they're going to respond? Have they ever responded like this before? Yeah, let's just forget about that. Let's just write a response for this one and just call it good. This episode, as with every other Mandalorian episode, is very much tied in with this sort of mentality. The reason why? We need a way for this guy to be able to find the Mandalorians. He just appears out of nowhere. Hey, how did you find us? We pride ourselves on our secrecy. You would never be able to tell where Mandalorians are living, except for that giant ship that's out there. And he says, oh, well, there's someone here that was part of the rebellion, and I found out where this guy was. Who is it? It's R5. R5 was part of the rebellion. So he's a war hero. And maybe that's why he jitters so much and is so nervous. But no, this is the guy our pilot was tracking. How did he know that Din Djarin owns this robot now?
Yeah.
Who told him that?
Is the space mechanic lady working with the New Republic now? Is she like a like a CIA type person, deep undercover on this planet. Like, why did she have destroyed and like the? Why did she like? There's so many questions. Like, why? And now I'm questioning why was she so adamant on giving this droid to Din in the first place? But it's probably nothing. They're probably just like, yeah, that he just got the droid somehow. I don't know.
He's literally fallen apart on her back at Tatooine, but by gum, she has to get rid of him. Is it because she knew that he was a war hero? And if so, does that mean that R5 has been an informant spying on the Mandalorians and beaming information to his old friend, Mr. Miyagi?
Who knows?
It's like, we go back a long time.
Droid. This dang droid. Just when I thought they were done with it, they bring it back in.
Mm-hmm. But again, that's how they... Well, that's why it's so frustrating. Because that is exactly what they do in the TV show Seinfeld. Like, literally. Every single episode. So, this is not somehow genius writing. This is them quickly adding in a plot point that they forgot to address because they're not paying attention to the past. They're only paying attention to the present. Oh, we have Mr. Miyagi here. And why? Well, because we need a way for Din Djarin to want to go back and help Navarro. Wait, the Grand Magistrate, the High Magistrate, is more interested in reaching out to this Republic starfighter than to Din Djarin, who he already trusts and was ready to say, hey, will you come be a sheriff here? He's not reaching out to him, but he's reaching out to a starfighter pilot. Yeah. Very logical, Disney.
Very, very weird.
So they decided, well, we need to have a discussion about whether or not we should go. And Mr. Miyagi, you can just, wait here as we decide whether or not we want to go help out our friends. By the way, what is your reason for wanting to reach out to us? Oh, the New Republic's just not interested in wanting to help people. I know that you wouldn't want to let a friend die. Maybe I'm missing something, but how does he know that Din and the High Magistrate are best buds? I mean, they know each other. He probably knows that, but what gave him this belief that they are best friends? I don't get that part.
No clue. Yeah.
By the way, if you notice in the background, we can see the spacecraft that Bo-Katan uses from a different angle. And that kind of gives us some idea about how much space is in there. That's going to come into play again. Look at that cockpit back here. A Mandalorian would be a little bit smaller than my mouse cursor right now. Just remember that scale. Because yes, it has a nose up here, but that's too narrow for people to sit. Once you get to halfway, it's all probably just equipment, sensors and whatnot. Maybe there's fuel in there as well. So you have to remember that's a very, very small area. That cockpit that we see whenever they're inside is all the space that is really there on the craft. Again, that will come into play in just a few moments.
So yeah, and they literally had this huge bat in there.
Yeah.
With other people. A tiny thing.
And so Din says, well, this is quite a shame that you have found us. Now we're out to find a new home. He's like, don't worry. I won't tell a soul. You can trust me. Right. Can you trust
Right.
R5, though? R5 is the real traitor. So, obviously, this guy can get going. He's a man of character. R5? R5's got to go. But so he flies off. And Din suddenly realizes, wait, there's probably other people using R5 to find us as well. And Bo-Katan's like, no, let's go in and discuss about the matters at hand. So they go in, and they are sitting around a fire. Because that's what Mandalorians do. Sit around campfires when they're eating their soup and their telling war stories and getting ready to go on grand adventures to fight bat creatures. So they have a fire in a cave. Because this group is more akin to Knights of Old than a science fiction world. I mean, their gear is all high tech, so why are they still always sitting around a fire? Ambience. Well, once Din says we need to go and help out our friends, well, help out my friend, he mentions that we can actually get land. Maybe it's, we can trust this guy. So he sits down and says that it's up to them to decide whether or not we go to fight. And I like the speech that was given here. What's the guy's name again?
Paz Vizsla.
Paz Vizsla. Yeah, that's right. Vizsla, I liked his speech.
I like him. Yeah, I really like him. He looks so cool in every shot this episode. Like, whenever he's on camera, he just looks so cool.
He starts off by basically taunting the Mandalorians. Everyone basically saying, hey, look, we are dying for this little green kid. And Din, we have all suffered greatly. Why do we need to help him out? What is there for us in this? We keep shedding our blood. Well, it's because we're Mandalorians. That's why we'll do it. And so he basically says, we have a call to duty and honor here. And so he is putting aside old grievances in order to focus on that which is before them.
Okay.
So they all go outside, and they're all going to pile in to one spacecraft.
Which looks huge now.
So now the inside is going to be huge. I want to know.
Ship looks huge here.
Well, yeah, it does look big, but remember how much those wings are influencing it. And so there's very little space. Remember from the side view, this pod, you have to go up the ladder. This is all useless gear down here. The only usable spot is this spot up here. And so you can maybe fit half those people in there. Pack them in.
Yeah.
Not everybody. And by the way, this group of Mandalorians is smaller than when they were fighting outside when they were attacked by the bat creature. Does that mean they've been eaten by more monsters? Their numbers fluctuate way too much.
Maybe they don't want to send everyone. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that could be.
Need to stay back. Some people need to stay back and protect the kids who aren't going or something, and protect this base still.
Yeah. Who's going to take care of those monsters that you just brought back? The foundlings. So they're getting ready to leave, and they get a review. And by the way, look at these seats. These seats inside the spacecraft. Do you realize the space that it would take for that? And again, think about the size of this vessel. There's not space for it. So they get on board, and they're getting a review of what is ahead. And the whole time I'm thinking, wouldn't they have had another ship for these Mandalorians to even arrive at that planet to begin with? Who is the one that brought them there to begin at the very start? Does one of them have a spacecraft that's off to the side? Did they pay a merchant to bring them there? It doesn't make sense to me. There's a lot of Mandalorians there, and they only have 2 ships. Yeah, that's logical.
Were they stranded there before Din and Bo-Katan showed up there? Like, they have to have some ships hidden away. Or like, you'd think they'd have one, I don't know, almost like a nomad thing. Like, they not nomad, because they're not going to have their own type of ship, but you'd think they'd have, like, one huge base ship that all of them could fit on and travel as a tribe together in space. Maybe not as big as that pirate ship or whatever, but some ship that could fit all of them.
Precisely.
Every single one.
I mean, at least have 2 or 3 other ships with you. You don't have to all pile into the 2 ships.
Yeah.
So they look at the spaceship, and they're like, yeah, we're going to have to attack it and use some tact behind it. Well, They arrive, and the whole place has been obliterated, more or less. And there are still some citizens in the town. So not everyone fled. Why is someone left in the town? Well, because we needed that to happen. We need the pirates to abuse the civilians so that we actually know they're the big bad guys. So it's not enough that they just destroy their place. Now they got to beat up the civilians that are still there, which makes me wonder, were they abandoned by by the others? Doesn't the High Magistrate have like an evacuation plan? I mean, he doesn't have any sort of planetary defenses, so I guess he doesn't have an evacuation plan.
Yeah.
And here are the pirates, going around and doing as pirates do, destroying things and drinking themselves senseless, which isn't bad necessarily. I mean, it makes sense for characters like this, but this was actually an opportunity for something that probably could have been done to help build upon the lore. I mean, right now they're just showing standard pirates drinking. And by the way, look at those drinks that they have. Does that not look like it's out of the 1700s as well? They have ropes around the bottle.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really leaning into the pirate thing.
Yeah.
But like land sea pirate type thing, not space pirates.
Yep. Well, now here's
I think
something
that
they
makes it-
could have done, though, to actually improve it. Why not have the pirates using spice?
Yeah.
That
That'd
would
be-
have actually built upon the lore. Would have added something completely different. Would have shown what type of quality of pirates these are. And actually would have given us a chance to see someone actually using the effects.
Yeah, that would have been that'd have been very interesting. I agree. But I don't think they want to show like the spice. It's like a drug, right? Yeah, it's like a drug. I don't think they want to go that far, like showing someone smoking stuff like that.
No, but they introduced it last season, so
Yeah, they did. I get that. I think having them, like people selling it and then people trying to stop it type of thing is like they're okay at that, but literally showing people using it, I don't know if that's a line Disney wants to
well, you don't even.
completely cross.
I guess you don't even have to show them using it, but you could show them saying, "Hey, I found the good stuff," and then like cut to another scene.
Yeah,
Because that would have shown that
There
they're
could have
not
been a way
just
to do it
standard
before.
pirates. I mean,
Yeah.
look, they even chose one of the pirates to actually look like he belonged on Davy Jones' ship.
Yeah, the sea creature looking thing.
Yep. So we see Gordian Shard in all his greenness. It's not easy
I
being
like
green.
his design. I like his jacket. I really like his design, to be honest.
But again, his
I wanna know
design
about his
feels
plan.
like it's made for Pirates of the Caribbean. It doesn't feel like it's made for Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah, I get that, but I still think he looks so cool.
Well, you know what also
I-
would be cool? People riding horses in space as they carry swords. Oh wait,
Not
but
going that far.
that's why I don't like it when they have it like this, because even though it has an interesting look, like literally you could have taken this character and plopped him down in Pirates of the Caribbean 6 and it would make total sense. Because there's
Yeah,
nothing
this
about
could
him that
be
screams
different.
Star Wars. He's not using a blaster. He doesn't have any sort of fancy tech on him. He's not half cyborg. There's nothing that tells us that he's a part of this science fiction world. But I do agree, his design is good. He's just in the wrong series.
He would be a cool Pirates villain, to be honest. Like Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah. He'd be definitely cool.
And then we see a picture of a pig steering the ship. Literally,
Yeah,
this is a warthog driving the ship with a giant wheel. That's not very clever. I mean,
Not at all.
Disney could have had 2 rods that the guy's steering the ship with. That would have actually made far more sense. It could have had kind of the look of that you're driving a wheel, but instead you're driving almost like it's somewhere between an aircraft and a pod racer, and you're just standing and using it to help give you perfect maneuverability. That would make total sense for this world. But no, we have to have the steering wheel.
Yeah, I would have made him like have like a whole team of people. Like you know how like in like Star Trek and stuff, you know, the captain's sitting in the center, kind of giving commands to everyone, kind of like being like a team leader kind of guy. Like they could have had something like this, but it's just like the opposite of that. Like it's a bad guy, just kind of like just like bossing people around in like a very harsh and cruel way. And but the whole wheel thing, they that was where it, that was where it really crossed the line for me. I was like, what the heck? And then when they have it like turning in the air, the ship, it literally turns like a boat on water, like with sails and everything. It looked they really leaned into it too far there.
Well, we see another character here as well. There they have all their gunners going out. Where is this guy? Is he not in that scene? He's probably over here. By the way, that is a cool looking ship. I will not deny that. I like that ship.
Yeah.
That guy right there. The Shmi wannabe. He looks like he belongs in Peter Pan. It's like everything. Let's quick put everything that has to reference pirates and let's put it in here. We have to have this little fella right here that, again, kind of a slightly pig-like character, and he literally has a knife with a bandana wrapped around his waist.
Yeah.
Can you get? And he has a sweater on. Wow.
I will say, I think these characters are in the animated shows, but they're leaning so far into like the pirate tropes that we have. It's kind of over the line, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The little thing hanging around his waist and everything.
Well,
we'll get this space battle.
Din Djarin then brings R5 with him into combat because you know that robot is perfectly designed for combat scenarios. I mean, he doesn't have any nerves that could possibly cause him to freak out, and he might. And there's obviously no chance that someone might be tracking him because he's feeding information to a Republic commando team or whatnot. But so he draws away the fighters, and the Mandalorians jump down to the city so that they can fight off the fellas down on the street level. And I like that scene. I think the Mandalorians fighting on the streets is one of their best action sequences they've had in this series.
Yeah, and I really like this whole bit. Like, I liked the or the aerial combat, like with Bo-Katan and her ship and Din and his Naboo ship. I thought it was all really, I thought it was very interesting. There was a few problems I had with the combat on the ground, which I guess I'll go into now. But there's like one moment where they're going through the street, and it was all cool for the most part. But there's just one moment where these two Mandalorian, they kind of get like cornered, and they say to each other, "We're boxed in," and they're just taking shots from all angles. And I'm just sitting there like, dude, you have a jetpack. Literally, you can take the high ground at any moment. Like, what? It's your fault. You're still stuck there. Like, I don't know. There's some moments where I'm just like, I would have done that a little differently if I was in there. And like, you should never be trapped in a corner unless you're out of fuel if you're a Mandalorian. That's all I gotta say.
By the way, there was, from the previous scene, I forgot there was a quote that was given. And this quote's pretty funny. They mentioned about, think if we had a place of our own, a place where children can play in the sunlight. well, where our children can play in the sunlight. The Mandalorian speaking about their children. I thought the children would be, in a helmet from like the age of 10 onwards. So are you talking about anyone that's below the age of like 8 that cannot recite the creed? Because otherwise they're never seeing the sun again.
I think what they meant by that was because they're kind of living in that cave. So I think they're trying to say, our kids are living a life in this cave. Imagine if they could just run around a field type of thing. Yeah, the sun's not shining on their face, or they're not getting any tans or nothing. I don't know. I think that was just meant, let's get out of this cave and let's take a step in a different direction type of thing. And I think the kids were like a motivating factor, and I didn't have a huge problem with that part.
They instead should have said, maybe we can go to a planet where monsters aren't constantly eating our kids. That would have been a better way to do it.
I'm pretty sure they fought monsters here as well. Like,
yeah, but are they not always going to be coming up to the mouth of your cave? Debatable.
Yeah. Like little sand creatures.
So here we are on the street level. We're seeing, honestly, some borderline clone trooper tactics, which is, again, it was good to see. I wish they would have done more of that in past episodes. But yes, there is some times where it's like the weapons that the Mandalorians have are not being used. The battle sequences feel very much like their Last Jedi sort of vibes, of where they're doing it just for the sake of making it look cool rather than actually having any sort of logic to the way that they're fighting.
Yeah.
Because one thing that they have, rockets, and they show it in one of the scenes, and they get pinned down by somebody and they don't know how to fight him, but they could have just used a rocket and would have dealt with it. So, but that's going to come up in just a moment. Or jetpacks.
Like they have a minigun shooting at them, and they're all just like, yeah, I'm just going to stay on the ground and be target practice for it. I'm sitting there, I'm like, fly up to that tower and shoot a rocket in there. Like, do something that's standing there and being a duck and sit in water.
Mm-hmm.
A duck and sit in water.
Oh, by the way, for this sequence as well, let's go back a little bit. When they arrive and they see this craft out in the sky, all of the gunners are in there, and Din's flying around as if it's nothing. What happened to the weapon lock that he was so worried about a while back? And by the way, that had no consequences. The weapon lock on that thing is garbage because it doesn't actually lock onto anything. You can just speed away from it. But they don't have any sort of consequences for it. All the shots that happen from this spacecraft are going directly to the ground. It's not being used against Din Djarin's ship or the slower one that Bo-Katan has.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really dumb. Like they didn't even show him trying. They were just like, yeah, we're just gonna stay here and let the tanker fight. Like you could at least shoot a few shots and then have the captain be like, oh my gosh, stop! You're gonna shoot our own ships because they're like so close to each other or something. Like they could almost be hitting their own ships, and maybe that's why they're not shooting at them. But there wasn't even really any attempt to be like, they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna sit here and let whatever happens happens.
Then the High Magistrate mentions to Din Djarin that you're outnumbered 10-1, and Din Djarin says, I like those odds. And then, of course, he goes...
He could be worried, especially with his kid in there.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't leave the kid with the other kids. He was like, we're not going to bring the kid to go save another kid. That's for adults. But we're going to go invade a planet, and now we're bringing the kid.
That's a good point. They bring little baby Grogu to this war, but fighting a monster on a cliff? No, that's too dangerous. Yeah. Obviously, we know where the real dangers of this galaxy are. It's in the monsters, not in the spacecraft or any weapons. It's not like there could possibly be a battle station that'd be more dangerous than any creature that is known in the galaxy. Oh, wait.
So, no sense.
Mandalorians have their fight on the ground. Din Djarin's flying off and baiting all these characters. And by the way, look at this shot. Look at this shot. This is perfect. All right, I'm going to zoom in here. Stand by. It'll bring me just a... Oh, wait, no. Wrong program. Sorry. Right here. Just going to duplicate... Come on. Duplicate this.
While you're doing this, I will say...
Right there. Do you see the human's lips in the mask? Right there. They're not even hiding it. And so somehow we're to believe that this character is really well put together, really clever, but whenever he speaks, this happens. You can literally see him forming the words on his actual lips, and the mask doesn't go with it. By the way, that means that it's an incredibly cheap mask that they used. There's a type of silicon called dragon skin that actually is really good for being able to morph to a character's face. They didn't use it for this, or they didn't use any other form of silicon or whatnot that has been proven time and time again to work. They couldn't even be bothered to go in and just paint it out.
I am happy they are. It definitely looks wonky, but I am happy they're trying to use practical effects.
Like how they used it on Gordian Shard's mouth?
I'm not saying it's perfect, but also I never even when CGI is done really well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always it could, I don't know, it could be better. I feel like I would still have complaints if it was over CGI'd or whatever. But as far as practical effects go, I really like. I think there are some cases where the practical effects on the monsters look good, especially when they're not speaking, like when they're just doing actions,
true.
like in the battle. I think it looks cool. But and I think earlier in the episode, the robot that the magistrate has not the R4 or whatever, but the standing one that kind of looks like C-3PO. I think that was practical effects. I thought that was pretty cool. I think they actually had some skinny dude up in that robot walking up in that costume walking around. But I do like that they're trying at least, and I think hopefully they continue to improve it.
Yeah, I just wish that for their mouths, because this is now 2 pirates that have mouths that are like this, and I can't figure out why they couldn't be bothered just to blend it together a little bit. I mean, it doesn't take much. I mean, all you have to do is honestly, just darken the mouth. I mean, that's all they had to do. You don't have to have him mouth along perfectly to all the words, but just darken it so it does. You can't see the actual person's lips in there.
Yeah. I think that I have the episode up right now, and he's actually up in my screen. I think it doesn't look terrible at all times. It definitely doesn't look perfect. You can tell it's practical effects, like a mask type thing. But I don't know. Yeah, that shot you have on the screen right now, it's just oh geez.
Yeah.
But,
I just kept looking at that. I just kept looking at that throughout this whole episode. It's I can see the mouth, the actual mouth behind the mask. And so I just feel like they could have done it a little bit smoother. That's all that it would have taken. I mean, look at how they did it for the eyes. They did it for the eyes, but they couldn't be bothered with the mouth.
I'm very conflicted because it does have that problem, but at the same time, that still shot you have pulled up right there. I'm that looks pretty cool. He looks pretty cool on that shot, and that's why it looks good in the combat. When they're just running around, you see glimpses of these prosthetics and stuff, and they're not really having to do some having give them dialogue. It's just them doing actions and stuff. I think it looks cool in the action fights.
That is true. Overall, his look is decent, but his mask is cheap. And that's where, if they had invested in a better silicon, they could have avoided that problem.
He does look like Voldemort with horns.
He does, doesn't he?
No nose, dude.
So they go chasing Din through the canyon. They break off because they realize that he's the distraction. They come back, and we see the Mandalorians getting pinned down, and like you mentioned earlier, It's like, no, they're not cornered. They have jetpacks.
Yeah.
In comes Vizsla. He mows them all down. And then this gunner up here sets up his weapon.
Cool. Vizsla is so cool in every shot this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Even when he gets shot, I'm like, you still are cool, dude. He's just like, he's like the Hulk of the Mandalorian. Just this huge dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's intimidating in every shot this episode. This episode made me like him like 5 times more, and he didn't even do much except give that awesome speech.
Right. So then they use this blaster to destroy the Mandalorians. Well, I think it more just injured them. I didn't see any Mandalorians actually blowing up or things like that. I think they're all pretty much alive. But
yeah, somehow.
They come back, and then they realize that Din wasn't necessarily the distraction. He was actually one of the combatants, because he comes back and just mows them all down, because now they're dealing with a different distraction of Bo-Katan. And while that's happening in the skies, the armor decides to go and beat some sense into the enemy and takes out the gunner that's up at the top. But the whole time I just kept thinking, as this armor is going through banging up folks, is that it's pretty loud. Maybe the gunner would have noticed that something was going on and would have turned around, but nope, didn't. He's too focused having a field day shooting Mandalorians.
Especially since we're hearing it. It would have been cool if like we were hearing shouting and gunfire and that's all we heard. We didn't even hear her attacks, but literally the whole time she's walking up, we hear her attacks perfectly, and it's loud. They could have done it in a way, but they should have had more background noise, and we weren't even hearing her attacks. But yeah, it was really weird.
Mandalorians have now ruled the streets, and now they are starting to rule the skies. And our pirate friend here decides that he's done being a pirate for this pirate, and so he's going to run away. While Gordian Shard plays Captain Hook and grabs the wheel to start trying to maneuver the vessel so he can gun down all the citizens. But at the same time, couldn't you just rotate your guns? I mean, you already have elevation. You don't have to move the vehicle. But
leaving his ship, him leaving his captain, it reminded me of Pirates of the Caribbean. Because like in the first movie, they all like abandoned him, like at the base, or at the final, where the final fight scene takes place, and he's like, they just done right with by them, pirate code type stuff. They're not the type of people to, stay back and help get one another. They're gonna do what's best for them. When he left, I was like, oh, that's definitely that reminds me of Pirates of the Caribbean. But his captain should have been like, I don't know. I think it'd be cool if his captain was like, obviously, I don't know. Instead of getting mad, he was just like kind of like, he gets it. He's a fallen ship, and people are running. And I don't know. They could have done it in a better way. Because like, what's him yelling at a ship gonna do? Like, he's not gonna turn around. He made up his mind. It could have been done cool over there.
So Gordian Shard moves the ship over to try and destroy the Mandalorians because he's too lazy to rotate the guns. And then the last engine gets blown up and they blow up. And it is a spectacular explosion, honestly. They did a fairly good job on it. They all cheer.
Their city's ruined.
They all cheer because the fight is now over. And the attack, obviously, means that whatever pirates are on the ground are kind of irrelevant. And by the way, why are all these people just kind of grouped up again if they thought that they might actually be attacked from the sky? Not very intelligent.
Yeah, and they're really cheering. They're like, yeah, my apartment building blew up. Like, as they ship glasses. Like, I don't know. Like, you'd be happy that this threat's done, but you'd still, like, be, like, kind of, like, upset. Like, I don't think people would be cheering instantly just from that. You know what I mean? I think they'd still be in fight mode kind of thing. Because, like, they're literally watching a ship fall down on their city. They're like, crap. Like, I don't know. It was really weird that being, like, a super happy moment. That should have come later. Like, I think when they're like, Mandalorian, you're now part of us, that should have been where everyone's cheering. which they
Right.
kind of do, but literally
That
cheering as your city's getting blown up from a falling ship. That was just kind of weird to me.
Bastion mentions one thing I would have liked to see expanded: Mandalorians with different specialities. It seems everyone had a jetpack, with the big guy carrying a machine gun. Yeah, their equipment was all very similar.
Yeah, that was something I noticed too, especially when they're in the ship, like in Bo-Katan's ship. All of them have the same helmet on, pretty much, and a lot of them, when they're in combat, have the same gear on as well. But then every other time you see them, they all have different colored armor. They look very different and stuff. And it was really weird. Like during the fight scenes, they got rid of like all the designs they did for the background characters and stuff in Mandalorian. And I know he's specifying more, I think, on fighting styles and stuff they can do better than others. But yeah, it was they did the fight scenes kind of weird in that sense. Got rid of all the colorful designs and stuff for it.
And then we get this moving speech from the magistrate, high magistrate, and he says that the Mandalorians now have a home here on Navarro. They are going to be allowed to dwell on this planet in a fairly large stretch of land. In this world, though, based upon how many Mandalorians are out in the galaxy, chances are they have just invited themselves to get overrun with Mandalorians. Which, sure, the Mandalorians help protect you, but you've also just ceded your planet to them, in a way. And if these people in Navarro are only merchants, then sure, they don't care. If they're an actual culture, they would actually have some pretty big problems with this, because throughout history, whenever you call upon another nation to come and aid you, and you give them a tract of land, it never turns out well. Sure, sometimes on the rare occasion it does work out, but for the most part, it usually just moves people to a conflict in the future.
Yeah.
So, High Magistrate is making a very much a historical sin, because this does not usually turn out well. And by the way, look at the crowd of people out there. That crowd is tiny. That's your town?
Yeah.
I mean, this is enough people for one block. This isn't enough for the entire town or the city. I mean, just right here. That's the people here would cover up this one street. Crowds in this story are ridiculous.
Yeah. And with him having the Mandalorians on there, yeah, it might be peaceful for like a generation, and maybe the kids who are raised here will be peaceful, but who knows what it is, 2-3 generations from now with these people. There's going to be like some type of civil war at some point of people. The Mandalorians are just going to be like, yeah, you guys are just like merchants and stuff, like you said. So we're just going to rule over this planet, and you can continue to do your merchant stuff, but it's our planet now. Like, there's got to be some type of conflict that happens at some point.
I mean, golly, they used to fight side by side with the Jedi.
Yeah. And they're completely reliant on these group of people for their protection. Like, they don't have an army. Like, the Mandalorian are the army, and they're not really a part of their culture. Like, they're literally going there. So Mandalorian, like, they literally said, we can go there and we can have our own culture now. Like, are they really going to defend them at all points? They probably will, because Disney will probably want this place to be some fairy tale-esque type place, but it is weird how you would think people would be like, we need to form our own army. Like, we can't be relying on the Mandalorians forever. I don't know. That's what I'd be thinking if I was on that planet.
Yeah. Well, there is a character on this planet that does not make sense to me. I'm going to take a snapshot of him. It's the fact that they have this guy out there, a calamari. The fact that Fish Face right here is living on this more or less volcanic desert planet is really odd, because I don't think that Disney Star Wars even knows what to do with this species. They have routinely botched this species throughout the entirety of Star Wars being owned by Disney. This group, the calamari, should have been one of the most influential and powerful species in the galaxy. And they're being treated as side characters, being given generic clothing and put into crowd scenes. This species routinely would complain about dry environments. They would need to have sauna rooms, basically, on the calamari ships. It was so much so that in the lore, human beings struggled to even work on their ships because it was so much of an irritant to them to have to be on the same ship as a calamari. So the fact that they're just living among the human species and it's like no big deal, I wish they would have shown consequences for having this species there at all. Greetings, Jared. Bastion says... I'm sorry, finish your thought. I'll read what Bastion has.
Yeah, we see them in the Clone Wars show. Like, it's literally like an underwater, like Atlantis kingdom type thing. There's that squid-looking character we saw earlier. That's part of the pirates. I'm pretty sure they're from the same planet, at least in Clone Wars lore. And I think they kind of tried to do like a Republican Democrat thing with theirs, that type of thing, even though it's like a royalty type thing. It's like a Democratic royalty. Weird thing. And like they were like there's two sides, the squid looking characters and then the calamari characters. They were like head to head, and I feel like it was kind of like they weren't completely inspired by modern problems, but it was like showing like two sides in politics going at it and stuff with these characters. And then it's really weird seeing these creatures who we literally saw living underwater, like completely now on a sand planet, drowning in the sun instead of water. It's really weird what you were saying.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm going to be raising that comment later on about what they could have done to really make the calamari a very important part of Star Wars lore in the Disney universe, but we'll address that at a later date. Oh. Bastion mentions, didn't the armor give Din Djarin a jetpack, and said he was trained by the people who specialize in flying? Oh, good point. Yes, about specialization. It could be interesting to see Bo-Katan finding other Mandalorians who have different groups with their own armor designs. That would be fascinating. I like that idea. So
yeah, they'll probably do something like that.
So we're coming to the end of this episode, and there's two more scenes that really kind of change a lot of the story, more so than anything else that's happened up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Because Vizsla tells Bo-Katan, Armor wants to see you. Oh, the Armor is not out here to listen to this rousing speech about you now have a home. The Armor is away. So Bo-Katan goes down and finds the Armor at the forge where she used to work. And
that shot where they're walking down the stairs to the Armor, Vizsla looks so cool in that shot. I've said that like 50 times. He looks so cool in every shot this episode. He's so sweet.
The Armor,
I would not want to cross his path.
The Armor then says to Bo-Katan, take off your helmet.
Why?
And I was like, well, like I said earlier, this is Seinfeld. They can't make up their mind what they want to have. Do they want to keep the helmets on? Is it part of their religion? Is it just a personal preference? What is it about the helmets? They're not codifying anything. It is Seinfeld. And so she takes off her helmet, and oh, look at that. Your hair is still perfectly fine because that helmet doesn't, cause your hair to get all tangled up. That's not possible. And the armor then says, you can walk both worlds. Wait a minute. There is an option? There are two options of Mandalorians? Which one is better?
Yeah, that was stupid.
And
That
then
was one stupid.
And then she mentions, this is a start of a new age because you have seen a mythosaur. So, the new age has started, and now it's finally clicked in her head, it's the new age. You've seen a mythosaur. Why did you not mention it last episode when you were on the planet, on the previous planet, and you were just told that? It should have happened like later on that night. Should have been that when no one else was around, you just summon her and say, I believe you. And then say, like, disappear. And then make it a very secretive thing. That would have shown a different level of character. Not now. You don't start with that at this point.
Yeah, and apparently the new age means that they're just going to abandon the rule that they all live by. They're like, yep, this is the start of a new thing. Our culture is going to rise again. Oh, yeah, that thing about our culture, this one rule that's very important to us, screw it. What's the worst that could happen? We're already abandoning it at the start of the new age. So my two theories for why that happened was either her actress was contractually obligated to be like somewhere in the contracts they're like, she needs to show her face. Like, she can't be wearing a mask the whole time. Maybe there's some rule behind that. And
that's what happened with Din Djarin, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, well, to an extent. Pedro Pascal really tried to make it, just let me take my helmet off. Like, I just want to show my face. And I'm pretty sure it's Disney, Star Wars put the foot down. They're like, no, you're the main character of the story, and it's going to completely alter what we want to do with this character. And the culture they're supposedly trying to build with these Mandalorian, but for her, they're just like, yeah, all that, we're just throwing out the window. I bet you if Pedro Pascal's seeing that right now, he's like, what? She gets to take her helmet off, but not me? Like, I'm sitting here for 3 seasons now wanting to show my face every episode. Like, I want people to see my face. And now, all of a sudden, it doesn't matter? He's definitely got to be like, what the heck? And it's very weird because the times he does take his helmet off, it means something. Like, he wants to look at Grogu's face like, it's for Grogu almost. Like, to save Grogu or just to look at Grogu eye to eye, like, as humans. Like, I feel like that was, like, a good scene. But with this, I just feel like no emotion. It just felt, like, weird. I was like, wait, why? Like, this isn't something where someone's, like, feeling, like, temptation, like, to break the rules for some sort of, like, goal or pleasure or something, or just connection. It's literally the whole armor is, like, guiding this whole thing. Is like, yeah, everything we live by, screw it. It was really weird.
That's why when the armor told her to take off the helmet, I thought for a moment she was going to say, you were so ready to trust me and take off your helmet. You are not a Mandalorian. Get out. That's what I thought she was going to do. But it didn't happen.
Like it was gonna be good.
Instead, she gets basically told that you are the chosen one. You are going to unite all of us, and you now have a mission to go off and unite people.
Which, even so, it's still kind of dumb. They could have done that and have her keep her helmet on. Like, they didn't really need to do that. And it would have been cool to see her go to a different tribe that maybe doesn't follow the same rules as this tribe or whatever, where they're not as strict about the helmet thing or whatever. And they're like, ew. Like, she goes to this other tribe and she's like, everyone's like, ew, like, why are you wearing your helmet 24/7? Like, we don't do that here.
Mm-hmm.
There could be like some cultural differences, and she's still new to it, so she's trying to explain it and justify it, but even so, she's maybe still trying, you can tell she's still trying to learn why she's doing this. Like, I don't know, they could have done some interesting things, like, with it, but they just threw it out the window with this tribe who's so committed to this one rule. Like, one of the only rules we know about these people is don't take your helmet off. It's
That's
so
why
weird how they just threw that out the door
I feel
for
like
this
the
kid.
person who wrote this doesn't actually have any sort of understanding of what it means to live in accordance to a religious code, because
Mm.
no one lives by it's very much a plot point, and you don't see it really impacting them. And what's more, the whole fact that this is the one rule that they have to keep. Again, we mentioned it last time, but this is absolutely ludicrous that this is the only thing that makes you Mandalorians, wearing a helmet. Jared Thorne mentions, I suppose that means we just have to ignore everything the armor said about Bo in Boba Fett. Ah, yeah, there's that is true. That armor doesn't really hold Bo-Katan in very high esteem based upon the past. So it is strange that she's so willing to just kind of side with her. Now, granted, the mythosaur kind of changes things, but again, you should have started with that. It should have been so much it just shook the armor. It's like, no, that can't be, and then coming to terms with it. And what's more, just the long and short about the helmet, it's the gimmick's getting old. I wish they would have just dropped it at this point. They always bring this thing up, and it's time for them to find some other new clever idea to push the story forward, because this is not working anymore. Well,
Yeah.
so Bo-Katan goes off on her journey, and we return to see. We come back to see our sensei flying through the stars. This rebel pilot is this New Republic pilot is so very important to the New Republic that he does everything in the Outer Rim. There is no one else that they trust. Well, no one else that he trusts. He can't send someone to go search out for stuff. And he comes across actually a fairly neat sequence here of where he comes across a shuttle. And then they send a probe into the shuttle. Boy, if only they had a probe that they could have sent down to Mandalore to find out if it was poisonous or not. So they send in a probe, which, by the way, is pretty clever how they did it. Probe goes in, scans, and they find out that this is where Gideon was being shipped, and people are dead out there. It's been a while, and they find a shard of Beskar, and it's like, Mandalorians must have done this, and then it cuts to credits. Well, is it? Is Beskar really only used by the Mandalorians?
Wasn't the robots at the end of season 2 like those super trooper type robots? That weren't those Beskar, because they were literally punching Beskar armor, and there was no damage done to them. So I kind of just assumed that, like, oh, maybe these are Beskar as well, just from that one fight where it's literally punching Din's helmet and it's doing damage to neither of them. If that was just normal metal, that thing would, one punch, as hard as it did, it would like break some of the circuits and wiring and stuff within it. I don't know. I feel like there's more. I feel like, yeah, that reasoning that's like, oh, it's Mandalorian. It's like, well, anyone can have Beskar at this point. Like, well, that's like a saying, just because someone has armor, that means they're a knight. Like, no. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm actually searching that right now to see what the information is. It does look like that's the case. Yep, they were made using stolen Beskar steel. So in other words, yes, they could be the robots that were in the previous season. But again, that's assuming that only the Mandalorians are going to use Beskar. This thing is so useful. This metal is so powerful. Nobody's going to want to like avoid it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They're going to all seek this thing out. No one's going to be just saying, "Oh, Beskar, yeah, that's like the stuff the Mandalorians use. We can't use that." I mean, they might take issue with us. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, "Hey, look, the most powerful metal in the galaxy."
I'm surprised the Empire didn't make ships literally built fully out of this thing.
Yeah.
Just Beskar, and it could literally take any bullet, pretty much.
Or even just putting on like certain vital parts. Have a Beskar shell around like pilot rooms or things like that. Didn't Vizsla
Maybe
at one point get upset because Din had Imperial Beskar because the Empire pillaged it from Mandalore? Oh, interesting thought. Yeah, Beskar is in many places. Beskar is only found on Mandalore, but yet at the same time, it has been mined, it has been shipped, and Mandalorians have died all over the place. And by the way, if it's only coming from Mandalore, somehow I think they would have mined it dry at this point.
I'm pretty sure he got paid in Beskar. Like when he first starts working for this magistrate dude, I'm pretty sure the bounty.
Yes,
like
it
I'm
was.
pretty sure the pay for the bounty is you get Beskar. So literally, there's people paying with it. Just a
Precisely.
normal dude in an independent planet. Like I feel like any person who's really I don't know. Like I feel like even pirates could have touch with it. You know?
That's like somebody placing a Kyber crystal and saying, "Oh, look, now they'll just assume that a Jedi did it." When Kyber crystals were used all over the place, it just was that certain ones would be used for lightsabers and things like that, and they use Kyber crystals even for like the Death Star laser. So of course, once it blows up, it's going to be sent to all planets in that solar system. The Remnant guy paid him in Beskar. Yes, precisely. Yes, precisely. But again, this is I'm sorry I'm bringing this up over and over again, but this is Seinfeld. Nothing here is being remembered. It's all being just used for the here and the now, and no one's actually paying attention to whether or not this stuff actually has any relevance to the past or to the future. It's just a standard plot point that they're just throwing in because they need some sort of tension. Well, we need to actually start to wrap things up. So we're going to go through the scoring for this so we can start to wrap things up. So for our starting scene, we have from when the pirates first arrive, and we're going to the main credits, to the title sheet here. So it's when the pirates arrive. Character. What would you give the characters for this scene?
I did 0.5.
I'm going to give it 0.5 too. Mostly because they didn't do anything that was like negative, but they didn't necessarily do anything that was like inspiring.
Yeah.
Jared mentions they make things up as they go. R5 is proof of that. Precisely, exactly like what we were going over earlier. Dialogue. I'm a little torn on this. I want to give it a 0.5, but at the same time, it's kind of plagued by some of the other things that were said. In particular, whenever we're seeing the magistrate and some of the things that he was saying to the characters around him, or like to the droids, things like that, I'm going to give it a 0.5, but it barely got there.
Yeah, I agree with all your comments, but I'm also on 0.5 as well. There wasn't anything inspiring. There wasn't anything great, but it wasn't like the worst thing ever. So it's just kind of in the middle there.
Action.
Really, the only action there was he just started opening fire on the city, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
hmm I guess I'm gonna do 0.5 again.
I'm going to give it a 1 because I've always wanted to see this type of attack being used more often in these films and in these shows, and they actually did it. Setting, I I do not like Navarro. I've never liked Navarro. It
Yeah,
feels like a stage where they just throw all the excess um, really the excess items that they had around, but I'm still going to give it a 0.5 because they at least do something with it. It's just not to my taste.
yeah, they're really expanding upon Navarro in this season compared to other seasons. I think they kind of realized the problem that you've been mentioning, where I haven't really cared about this planet, but now it's like a huge deal. Uh, I think they realized that was a problem. They're really trying to build it up now. Uh, I kind of there's some things that look cool, like with the statue of that droid who literally died fighting the the Empire on this planet and stuff. Like when Moff Gideon invaded this planet, I think it's cool how they're kind of adding some stuff to it from stuff that's happened in previous episodes. Ah, yeah, I'm gonna do a 0.5 as well.
All right, recording that. The next scene is where we have the military base, and we're going to go all the way up until Coruscant, because that's kind of one scene for that. It's the
Yeah.
rebel pilot and his adventures to try and get help, and meeting folks on Coruscant. I'm going to give the character a 1 because they actually the characters were compelling for the most part. Sure, it could have been done better, but compared to what we've seen in the past of The Mandalorian, this actually was a fairly impactful scene.
Mm.
Well, series of scenes, technically.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of like this guy's character and the stuff, the conflict he had with the ex-Imperial person, like that little bit between them. I thought it was very interesting, and how he's kind of just wanting to help these people, even though he's still got that rebel vibe. Like we need to help people when there's danger. Like he's kind of realizing that they're like he's not fully with the Republic, because the Republic's like, nah, they're not part of the Republic. We're not helping them, stuff like that. And I kind of liked how he's just like, no, I need to help someone in danger, even if it's just flying to one place to another, just trying to help. So I'll give it a 1 as well. I thought this was I think this is one of the better character development scenes they've done in the whole show, honestly, especially with the things I'm saying. I wish they did with Bo-Katan.
I agree. I'm also going to give dialogue a 1 because they actually built upon the story, and the dialogue carried weight, which was refreshing to see. What do you give dialogue? Unfortunately, it seems like we've lost rolling chairs. So his phone battery probably died on him. So I'm going to go through and just start rating the rest of this stuff here. And if he comes back in time, I will add in his reviews. For action, it gets a 0.5 because no action technically happened. Setting, I give it a 1. I really did like this setting. And until Rolling Chairs returns, I'm just going to have his score mirror mine. All right, so going to record that. For the next scene, we have from the moment where he arrives to visit the Mandalorians. Well, right here. We're skipping over this area right here because it doesn't really impact a whole lot of this rating. It's from this point to when the Mandalorians decide to leave and fight. So that means this area in here in the cave, as well as them just being found out. Character, I'm going to give it a 0.5. No, I'm going to give it a 1. I'll give it a 1 because I do like this. 0.5. 0.5. Because I don't like the settings for this. I don't like how the characters are kind of interacting with each other, but I do like the dialogue. So the dialogue gets 1, the characters get a 0.5. Action gets a 0.5 because nothing happens. And setting, it gets a 0. I do not like this planet. This planet has been causing a lot of problems for the Mandalorians, and honestly, they should have left it by now. Welcome back, Rolling Chairs.
Hey, sorry about that. My Wi-Fi went out.
Oh, that's understandable. That happens from time to time. For right now, I've just been having your score mirroring mine because we need to wrap it up. So
Yep.
Right now we got that as a 0.5. The next scene is going to be their attack. It's going to be from the moment that they arrive on Navarro with their ships, and it's going to go all the way to the start of the armor scene. So it's not quite into the armor, but it's all the way up to this point.
Okay.
Character development. What would you give that? And this is all just basically action. So
Yeah, 0.5.
I'm gonna give it a 0.5 as well. I think that some of the characters were well done, but golly, no. I'm gonna give it a 0. I know the pirates grate on me so much. I cannot stand these pirates. Dialogue, I'm gonna give it a 0.5. Nothing impactful was said. Wait a minute, that's right. Nothing impactful was said. He gets a 0. It's all just trivial battle speech, which isn't even said very clearly. What do you give dialogue?
I'm gonna do 0. But for that one scene where they do the speeches in the caves, I give that scene a 1.
Oh yeah,
You didn't give that
that's
one.
that's
I
why I
wanna
gave it. That's why I gave it 2. So
All right, sweet. I just wanted to add that one
action.
part.
yeah, absolutely. Action. I think for the most part, even though there was problems that they had, I give it a 1 because I actually liked the most part of the action. It could have been better. It could have been worse. We've seen worse.
I agree. I think it's a 1. I think it's some of the best action that we've had all season. You know, it's not just fighting random trolls that just pop out of the ground out of nowhere. And I liked the aerial combat, the Naboo ship, and some of the ground combat was awesome. Yeah, I give it a 1.
By the way, speaking of aerial combat, isn't it interesting all the pirates know that the Naboo fighter is an N1? And Din didn't know
Yeah,
what
this
it
old
was?
ship.
Yeah.
It's super old ship.
And it's modified too, so how do they know that?
Mhm.
Setting. Well, I'm going to give it a 0 because we don't really see anything that's impacted by this scene that would have told us about the setting in a different way. It's just the same old Navarro.
Yeah, I guess I'll give it a 0 as well. Not much to expand, not much going on. What's that?
And then we have the end sequence. It goes from the armor talking to Bo-Katan all the way to finding Gideon's lost transport. Character.
I'm going to give it a 0. I did not like the whole thing they did with taking the helmet off and what that's going to be doing to her character. Yeah, I did not like that, to be honest. I wasn't really happy with the ending of this episode.
Dialogue. I'm going to also give that a 0.
Yeah, same. She has seen both worlds. So
I'm going to give it a point.
dumb.
I'm going to give it a 0.5 because of what happened with because we're actually learning something about the story. I might not like it, but we are learning about the story, and they're being more clear than in past episodes. So I'll give that. Action gets a 0.5 because nothing happens. And setting. I am actually going to... So I give Navarro a 0, but because of the spacecraft, the shuttle that they find, I'm giving it a 0.5.
I think I did 0.5 earlier when we saw statue and stuff. I'd 0 for that. I guess I'll do 0.5 again. I wasn't too impressed, but there was nothing really bad about it.
2.5. All right. Well, let us see what that score comes to. It comes to a solid, well, not quite solid, but more solid than some of the past ones. It ends up with a ranking of 5. Jared mentions Republic is scrapping all Imperial ships and equipment, but still using their Lambda shuttles. That's a good point. They are using an Imperial shuttle, even though they are trying to scrub the memory of them from the galaxy. They should have had a different shuttle.
Wasn't the ship they're transferring Moff Gideon on? Isn't that an Empire ship? Or
That's the thing. That's an Imperial shuttle. And the fact that they would use an Imperial shuttle is really silly to me. And it also is silly to Jared. It's like, yeah, precisely. Why would they be doing this?
Yeah.
The last thing I want to mention about is the credits. There was something that I wanted to bring up. I'm trying to remember what it was.
The concept art and the so cool. Like, it's better than some of the shots in the episode, to be honest.
Absolutely. I can't remember what it was I was going to bring up about the credits. I didn't write down a note, so we'll have to address that later on if I can remember it. But with that, we need to bring this one to a close. We did start later in the day, and so we are going to end at this point. Thank you, everyone, for coming by. Much appreciated. And if you found this interesting, be great to hear if we're covering this stuff the way you kind of would like to hear, or if there's ways that you would like to see us kind of change things up as we move on. There are quite a few episodes still to do, and so chances of us kind of shifting things around a little bit to try and make the experience better for you is something that I very much want to try and focus on. Roland Chairs, thanks for coming along and helping out with this. Look forward to seeing where they go with the story from here, because this one definitely did better than the previous ones, at least according to our score, and I did enjoy it more than others. And I'm glad that they got rid of Gordian Shard. It's like, yes, we've left him behind. He's now blown up. Now we can follow some other more interesting pirates.
I agree. This episode was one of the best, probably the best of the season so far. I don't entirely agree about Gorian. I liked his character. I wish we got. I wish we expanded upon him more. Like, maybe he barely escaped with his life and his ship, and then we see him escape to his home planet, and we see his home planet. It's like a swamp thing. I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, we agree. I agree. I think this is one of the better episodes of the season so far, even with all its faults.
Yep. Well, all right. Well, on that note, we will not be rating anybody because this is on 2 platforms right now. So all we can say is thank you for joining, and very much look forward to seeing where this series goes from here. Thank you for your time, and we will see you all when we return to review episode 6. Have a nice day, everyone.